Welcome to the White Mountain Ministries Show. I am your host, Nate Kibler. We thank you for watching, listening, and praying, and for being a part of what the Lord is going to do through the show today. Hey, and this ain't church, y'all. It is all about the kingdom of God. We just thank you guys for being with us. I'm excited for the show. We have a beautiful, amazing, intelligent, successful, loving guest. And I know that because I share a bed with her, and she is an amazing woman, amazing mom in the kingdom of God. It is going to be my wife, Ann Kibler.
Hey, guys.
Feel free to put her on the set.
Good to be here.
I just want to first go ahead and thank our sponsor. You see a new sponsor that we'll talk about as well today on Profit Overflow, but I want to thank Melanie Morris and Opening Doors Real Estate. Give her a call. Amazing agent serving all of Central Virginia. And new location on the corner of 29 Albemarle and Green on 29. So look up Melanie. Yeah, so hi, Ann.
Hey, babe.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
It's an honor. I just want to go ahead and say, you know, they're like, oh, some people may think, oh, he's having his wife. It's not just that I'm trying to have my wife. I'm not like looking for, some kind of favor in the household. This is because you are an
He already has favor in the household. He already has it.
You are, it's amazing what the Lord has been doing in your life and in your heart and what he's been teaching you.
Yeah.
And you are ready for this.
Yeah.
And it's an honor to have you. And many are going to be blessed by the show today. So thank you.
Yeah, that's my prayer today.
And we're going to have fun, and we're going to be real, and we're going to be raw, and have a good time like we always do, right?
We always have fun. Always.
So, you know that I love testimony.
Uh-huh.
You've heard me share our testimony, I'm sure, thousands of times at this point. I'm sure it never gets old, right? And so I'm going to ask you about testimony. And you don't even know this, but I did some research today. You were born in another country, and sometimes you're not even sure when you moved to America, but I found out today officially I won't say the year, because if I say the year, I'll be on the couch for a week.
Yeah.
But I do know...
I don't like to talk about how old I am.
But I do know that you came to the United States when you were 7 years old, officially, and you were born in the country of where?
The Philippines. Manila. Metro Makati, Manila. The Philippines.
So tell us about that. What was it like growing up in a foreign country?
Well, I remember a lot as a kid. I remember seeing a lot of poverty, and I remember people having a hard life, and I also remember it being beautiful. You know, what's funny about the Philippines, one memory that I recall is when we were walking through Baguio, which is a really poor area in the mountains. And I remember visiting a family, and they had nothing. I mean, their floor was like mud, and they had nothing. And I'm just going to call it the joy of the Lord. They had the joy of the Lord. And I think sometimes in these developing countries, they may not have much, but they also have a different sort of sense of joy and love that I think is really beautiful. So I think the Filipino culture in general is just a very happy culture. It's a very respectful culture. One of the cool things about the Philippines that's not like America is the older you get, the cooler you get. So like in America, like when you get older, you just kind of have to look forward to just kind of being alone, I guess. I don't know. But in the Philippines, they multi-generational, like the grandmas, the grandpas, like when you're old, you're distinguished, you're wise, you're more respected. People come to you for advice. Old age is a beautiful time in your life. So I always just thought that was so cool.
Please tell the audience what your first word was, by the way.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? You're going to talk about that?
Yeah,
my first word was ipis. For those of you who speak Tagalog, ipis. Ipis is cockroach. So there were these big, maybe I'm exaggerating. Like, I have a very colorful imagination. Nate always says that I exaggerate all the time, but I promise, this is how I remember it. These beetles were quite large, and they would fly around. And so, they would be on the wall, kind of crawling, and then flying around, and just something that I remember.
Many people in other countries of the world experience things we're not used to in America, right?
Salamanders on the wall. Yeah. Totally normal. Totally
And
normal.
so coming to America, I know it was challenging for you. You did not speak the language because English was actually your third language after Tagalog and Dutch, right?
Yeah, Dutch or Flemish was my first language. My mom's from Belgium. And I learned Dutch first, and then we moved to the Philippines, and I obviously learned Tagalog. And there was a little bit of English there. In the Philippines, they're very big into English movies and stuff like that. So when I came to America, my English was not. I was very weird. I still am, but I was really weird. I mean, I smelled funny, I looked funny, I dressed funny, I ate weird things. I definitely...
Well, God knows you did something with that because you're very beautiful now.
Well, thank you. Thank you, honey. Yeah.
And you've always been beautiful.
I don't know about that, but I definitely came into acceptance of myself and a love of myself. And I think that also came when I knew the Lord, so...
Well, let's talk about that because you did not grow up in a traditional household. We love your mom and dad. They're great people, but you did not grow up in a traditional Christian household, and you were one that, you wanted to find truth. You had a desire to discover truth, and you studied other religions. Can you talk about that?
It is so funny that you're mentioning this. Guys, we never talked about this. We never talked about what we're going to talk about.
I figured I'd throw you some curveballs.
Oh my gosh. I feel like from a very young age, I had a thirst and a hunger for God. But I didn't know who he was. And so I was looking for him. And I always believed that there was a higher power. I guess back then I would call it that I was very spiritual. I didn't know that it was Jesus. I just knew that there was something. There had to be something because I would talk to him all the time. And at times I felt like he heard me. And at times I felt like I could understand him too. And so I was on a search for this. And in high school, I remember there was a religion class. And I took it as an elective. And I learned about Buddhism, Hinduism, what else? Christianity, Muslim, like all the different things. And I remember feeling like I was still very lost. And I was like, 60, 70% sure that it was maybe Jesus, but it wasn't really clear to me at that point.
Yeah, and so for even the majority of our marriage, I was always Christian. I was a believer. I went to church at sometimes, but that was not something that interested you. You were never really a church girl, and you believed in God, like you're saying, but you felt like Christianity was the right path, but you still didn't necessarily really understand why. And you were not what you would call yourself to be a believer. But we kind of, I always say, because it's our testimony. You always like to tell me over the years that you don't do it as much anymore, but you used to say, well, Nate, I wasn't the one that was delivered. You were.
I did.
But it's also such a huge part of your testimony because thank God you were in the room when I was radically delivered. You were holding me when I was shaking and trembling and screaming. And it was such a powerful moment for you even being in the room to experience the power and the love of God. You ended up giving your life to the Lord 2 days later. Maybe you can talk about that.
I think that God did that for a reason. He knew that I was a Christian. But you know what? When the first seeds were planted, babe, was when Elena prayed for me.
Yes.
For the
talk
infertility.
About that.
Yeah. So we had friend Elena. And Nate and I we were going through a really rough time in our marriage. I'm not really going to go into the roughness of it, but I would say that it was really bad.
Well, you can share on some level because part of this show today, don't get into too many details, but, we were just not living really a Christian life. And, we were a mess. How about that?
Well, you were in your own way, but I was also a mess because I didn't know my value. And I thought that, because I had such struggles to have a child, that there was something wrong with me and that I was just built wrong. And when you have this feeling that you're just wrong for the world, it kind of just takes over all of your life, and it just comes out in different ways, very unhealthy ways. And so it just kind of really messed me up. But I remember Elena asked to pray for our infertility, and she laid her hands on me, and I just remember shaking and just having it really impact me. And I remember us having a fight in the car on the way home. Mm-hmm. It was a big fight. I mean, you were yelling. I wanted to yell, but I was very quiet because I felt like I didn't know, but I was hit by the presence of God. And I started really feeling like there was something to this Jesus thing, that maybe this Jesus thing was the right one. So
you gave your life to Jesus.
I did 2 days after he was 1 day?
I think it was 2 days later.
Yeah, 2 days later in our bathtub when Sean Hurley laid his hands on you and I saw you violently delivered. I was like, yeah, that is 100% real. I'm a witness, and that is true, and I am there, and I'm in. So whatever my life is, Lord, it is yours now. So.
But I remember, like you said, everything in my heart shifted at that moment. For you, it was a little bit different, and it took some time. I remember multiple people would speak over me, and they're like, don't get so far ahead of your wife that you can't catch up. Mm-hmm. And I always attempted to. Well,
you were on fire. You were like guns blazing this trail, kind of like I am like now with my thing. And when you see someone like that, you're just like, okay. Like, you don't really know what to do with it, especially if you don't really understand it. So, yeah. So
it took some years, but really when the Lord started really moving on your heart is when we were, struggling to have another child. You had this strong desire in your heart, and you decided you were going to take action. Yeah. And you decided that you were going to fast, and you were looking for answers from the Lord. About that? Of course, it was such a big defining part of your walk.
Y'all are going to think I'm so crazy, but that's okay. I don't mind. Everybody does. It's not a problem. I'm comfortable with it now. I didn't used to be, but I am now.
All right, we'll talk about it.
I was mad. I was mad at the Lord because I felt like he gave me this word, and it was so strong in my heart. I just knew, like in my bones, that he told me that I was going to have an October surprise. And I thought that was going to be a baby. And I was expecting that it was going to be the October that was coming up. And I was so mad. I was so mad when I didn't get my October surprise. I was just kind of like a spoiled brat a little bit, and just kind of mad and acting out. And I didn't really understand God then. And I mean, just because you give your life to him doesn't mean you really know him, or that you really get like you can see what the Bible says, but like, what is it saying? Like there's a difference. And I was still,
There's a lot of Christians that love him. We know about him, but we don't have deep, intimate relationship of truly knowing him.
Yeah, like really. And so I was mad because I didn't get what I wanted, or what I perceived was what I was supposed to get from him. And so I decided to fast. And I just kind of kept fasting. And I told Nate, I said, I don't care the price it takes on me. I need an answer. And even if I have to drop dead, like I need an answer. So I just did a water fast, and I just kept going. After 7 days, though, I started to kind of get like really weak. And I remember when I walked to the bathroom, I like collapsed. So I was like, okay, maybe I didn't know about electrolytes.
We were still both pretty young in our walk, and I remember thinking like, man, she's like maybe gonna die. Like I started to.
Oh, I was willing to. I was totally willing to.
You were willing to give your life to have another child.
I was willing to. I was willing if I could get an answer from him as to what was happening, and totally willing. And I ended up. You convinced me to have like half a cup of bone broth every day. So I did that. But other than that, it was just a straight water fast.
You ended up going on 21-day water fast.
Yeah, 21 days.
And at the end of the fast, the Lord came to you and said you were supposed to go to Cyprus to have the child.
He did, and I knew it. And I told Nate, and I said, we're supposed to go to Cyprus.
And so the long story short, because, we'll talk about our kids some, but really this show is about having victory in your life, victory in the kingdom. I mean, Jesus, he died on the cross. That was victory. Victory over death, victory over sin, victory over darkness. And there's so many Christians, we walk around today like we're defeated. We don't have no idea the enemy has but led people to believe that we don't have victory, but we do. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to talk about what it's like to have victory in your home, victory with your marriage, victory in finances, victory in all these things. And so what I'm trying to get at is that there was a process to this. God's timing was involved with this, and we live a supernatural life. You and I live a supernatural life. We have a supernatural family. We have so many testimonies. We have so much favor. We've been blessed along the way. But what we have discovered, and of course there's supernatural things again that happen, but often this has been co-laboring with God,
100%.
partnering with God.
100%.
And yes, could he have supernaturally just blessed us with a child in the womb? Yes.
About that, I have a few comments.
Please.
I could be wrong, and if you guys chime in on the comments and let me know what you think, because this is highly controversial, and you might be like, you're wrong, or like, I totally side with that. But I believe that he gives us free will for a reason. And I believe that reason is for us to kind of figure out our own destiny. Like, I almost feel like there are different routes that we could take, but because of the free will that he gives us, we go on a certain route, and then he just blesses that route. And he would have blessed another route had we chose that one and co-labored with him with that. But I do think that there's not like one strict path that you have to follow, right? Because some people are like, oh, I have to do what God wants. Yeah, but God also wants you to make a decision, and God also wants you to choose. And that's part of it. I mean, do you want to tell your kids how to live and how to do everything? No, you want to give them freedom, and you want to support them through their little nooks and crannies in their valley and their journey. And I think that that's what God wants us to do. And for me, it happened to be to go to Cyprus, maybe I could have also stayed, maybe, but that's just what I had to do. So.
Lisa Perna said, Ann looks beautiful as always. Thank you, Lisa. We love you too. Karen Force said, oh, that's good, Ann. We know him, but does he live in us?
Oh, 100%. Yes.
So,
yes.
But we came out victorious because we traveled around the world. We took a massive leap of faith.
Yes.
And we ended up coming home pregnant with 3 babies. That is a big part of it. The
leap of faith is a big part of it.
But we partnered with God.
Yes.
He gave us this vision.
Yes.
What I believe was a promise that we were going to have another child.
Yes.
But it didn't necessarily come easy because I like to say this, and you'll touch on this some, but you expect to be a millionaire and create kingdom wealth by just sitting on the couch eating Doritos every day. It doesn't usually work that way.
No, that's
now, sometimes
not how
somebody
it works.
could just pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, we're going to bless you with 100 acres.
Yeah,
we're
can we touch on that? I definitely need to touch on that.
But of course. But with our life, we partner with God when it comes to our children.
Yes.
It was not easy. When it came to our home, it was supernatural.
Oh my gosh,
but it was a challenging process where we learned to trust God in more areas of our life.
Just thinking of it, the trauma just brings me back.
And even the business that we'll talk about in the path of what the Lord has been doing with you. Even when it came to getting a car this year, the Lord gave you a vision.
Oh, that's
right. You had to align and partner with him, and it worked out. But it wasn't just here, Ann.
And there was resistance.
Here's an open door, Ann. Walk through it. I'm going to come with you and watch what we can do together.
But do you think that that's how it is for everybody, or that's just how it is for me? Because I feel like I'm a very action-oriented person, and I feel like God built me to take action. I'm just motivated. I wake up motivated, 24/7 motivated all the time. I mean, you can't not be motivated and live with me. Like, I'm always just very on.
You will certainly, yeah.
And I don't even know if it's ambition. I just want to do stuff and get into things and do stuff and learn and grow. And I think that the way that he created me, what he needs me to do is to take action. And I take action, and I keep going in different steps with him. And that's just how it works for me. But I do think that's how it works for other people too, right? I mean, you have to, it's about co-laboring. It's not about just you or just him. It's about both of you. And it's like, all right, I have a dream to have a business. Okay, so then I'm scared, but I'm going to go talk to people. And then maybe God puts somebody in your path. Or maybe he gives you the words to say. Or maybe he gives you an idea. Or maybe he finds a partner with the finances to back what you're doing. Or you know what I mean? You have to take steps. And by taking those steps and having God partner with you during those steps, because there used to be a time in my life where I would just take steps alone. And God wasn't a part of any of it. And I was just like blazing a path, like, and it failed, and things happened, and I wasn't listening to the right voice.
I think he still played a part, but you were trying to do it on your own strength.
Yes, But there's a difference now. There's a difference now. I'm doing it with him. And every time I do something, I'm asking him, is this what you want, Lord? Is this what I should be doing? Is this you? And I think there's a difference in that for sure.
Well, I'm just going to hop into this because there's a lot of people that I know want to hear about this. You are a young female, successful entrepreneur, businesswoman, mom of 4 triplets. We have 3 4-year-old girls in our home. And, you know, we are, the Lord has put some things on your heart. And when I first met you, I just want to say, and you know this, but you talk about determination, you talk about passion, you talk about work ethic. I'd never met anyone like this woman in my life. We were living in Washington, D.C. at the time. She was a mortgage broker. And I remember thinking it would be 11 or 12 o'clock at night on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. And I wanted to hang out. And she said things like, well, I'm still working. And I did not understand this. I said, who works? Who wants to work at midnight on a Tuesday? This was by choice. This was not forced.
Yay, we're 2 peas in a pod.
Jerry Miller's raising his hand. And I know there are people like that now.
You know, when you like what you do, when you feel invigorated by it, it's exciting. And you almost get on this thing where it's like, you know, if I stop and start later, I won't have the same like juice. So like I got the juice right now. So I'm just going to go with it and just.
Well, God created you with so many beautiful intentions, but one of the reasons I've seen now is that that you have this gift of creating wealth, success, and also to be able to teach others what that looks like. So why don't you talk about Share, because Ann has had a successful business for 13 years. You know, if people sometimes think, oh, well, that's cute. Well, you have the kids, so that must mean you're not really running like a real business. This must be like an Avon business in the back of the truck where you got a couple clients you give makeup to on the weekends.
I love being underestimated.
But
that's my
you
happy
have
place.
Typically 8 to 10 girls that work for you at any given time, and that's been the case. You do probably 75 to 80 plus weddings a year with your company. It's a legitimate business, and so you've been able to navigate that while having 4 children. So talk about that.
So in the natural, the way that I would say, and this is for other entrepreneurs out there, I think that the secret to that is productizing and systematizing. What does that mean? Okay. So what that means is you think about the flow from when you first get a customer to the end, and you kind of systematize it. Okay, the best way to think about, okay, let me think. All right, so you know McDonald's, all right? So McDonald's. A 17-year-old kid is running $1 million business. How is that possible? It's because of systems. Systems. You grab the hamburger, and then this is the next step, and then this is the next step. It's SOPs, standard operating procedures, right? So there's a way of doing it, and they do it the same every single time. And so what I did with my business was I systematized it so that when I was half a zombie trying to run my business half asleep, my business didn't suffer at all, because I did the same thing every time, and I had a system, and I just kept it the same no matter what. And I think that was kind of a key to success for sure, and also a lot of prayer. But systems is the key.
So
and I'm very. The Lord has blessed me with a gift for that.
So the Lord's been putting a lot on your heart in Scripture about kingdom wealth, about kingdom entrepreneurship. Talk about that. Genesis. You have so many verses that I know are on your heart.
Yeah. So God has been really having me go back to Genesis lately, and I remember like reading Genesis and thinking, there's so much in there about entrepreneurship. Like God, the first thing we know about God is that he was a creator, right? And so to be a creator, you have to be creative, right? And one of the first things that we know about us is that he put his seed in us, right? So is it not part of our purpose to be creative and to let his seed grow in us? And the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur is that you have to be creative, right? Because if you're an entrepreneur, you're either forging a new path or you're building a better mousetrap. Either way, it's creative thinking, it's problem solving. And I also believe, and some of you, I want you guys to say something in the comments and just chime in here if you agree or not. I'm not talking about businesses that are unethical, like the ones that gouge people and take their money. That's a whole different thing. Business done in line with Jesus's principles and teachings is always a good idea because it is a God idea. Okay? It is a God idea. Be fruitful. Multiply. Is that not the first thing he said to us? Be fruitful, multiply. In business, you're fruitful. You multiply. You take a seed and you multiply it. That's business. And also, one of the things too about entrepreneurship and business that I love is that to be a good entrepreneur, like to be successful and to make a profit, you have to serve your clients. And did Jesus not say from the very beginning, serve others, put them first? Like as a marketer, I think it's not about the message that I want to give. It's not about what I want to sell, what I want to do. It's what does my client want? How can I help them? How can I serve them? How can I get inside their head and be the solution to a problem that they need? And that's what entrepreneurship is. And is that not what Jesus did?
No, you're just on fire. I'm just listening. This is your stage today.
Well,
I'm just the host.
The first thing that he tells us, and this is what I was obsessed with for like last month during Bridge the Gap, I spoke on this, and it's like, be fruitful, multiply. That's what he said. Subdue, have dominion. He said that. But like, there's a lot of things that you say to people, right? But like the first thing, that's kind of like a really important thing. Like you say a lot of stuff, but like the first thing, be fruitful, multiply. But why a fruit? Like, it's just so weird to me. Like, why a fruit? And you think about it, a fruit has a seed. And when you consume that, there's more seeds. And then there's more seeds and more seeds and more seeds and more seeds and more. It just keeps going. Like there's no scarcity, there's no lack. It just keeps going and going and going and multiplies exponentially. And, that's how I feel like the creativity that Jesus gave me for entrepreneurship. It's like crazy. It's like people talk about the success pie, and people think that, if somebody's successful, that, oh, you're taking all the money and that there's not enough for me. But that's not the case. The truth is...
Talk about that pie, please.
Yeah, so I forgot what podcast it was.
Talk about him being a God of abundance and gold in the garden.
Yes. So about the abundance thing...
Share about the pie,
let's think about the fruit and the seed, because be fruitful, right? So you eat it, and then you have seeds, and then there's the potential for more fruit. Actually, there's more trees that produce more fruit, and it's like way more, right? So people think that success can be like a pie, where it's like, oh, well, you have a big slice, so that means there's less for me. But that's not the case. It's like everyone has their own pie. And once that pie's gone, there's more. And then you get 4. And then you eat that. And then there's 20. And you just keep getting pies. And that's truly how it is.
That's a really good word.
Isn't it? Because I feel
Get off our own high horse.
Yeah, I have these. And
there's more than enough.
There's more than enough. So what if a
competitor pops up? That doesn't mean you're going to die.
Oh, there's so many people in this world. Like, who cares? There's always going to be more than enough clients. Always, always, always. And one of the things that I was thinking about too is that as an entrepreneur, I love living in this creative imagination state where I'm just like, oh, wouldn't that be cool, right? And it's like, the cool thing about that is and Jerry, this is like, goes back to the whole, when you start on something, you just keep going. It's like you start going on this thing, and then all of a sudden, you just get more juice and more juice and more juice and more juice. And because you're using the juice, people would think, oh, yeah, you're like getting rid of all your juice. But it actually creates more juice. Right? You know what I mean? Like entrepreneurial juice. Like like the more you start going down and you're like, well, maybe I can solve this problem, and I wonder if I could help them this way, and maybe I could do this, and maybe I could add this to this, and this would really help them, this thing. And, it just keeps going. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Talk about the gold in the garden.
Okay. So I was listening to Genesis. For some reason, I was listening to Genesis a lot, especially during Bridge the Gap. And let me tell you this. So I was really struggling because it's like God put this seed of entrepreneurship in me and of growing stuff. And it's like, is that greedy? Like, is that wrong of me to try to want to make more money, to try to provide more for my kids? Like, is that wrong? Because if that's what God doesn't want me to do, then I don't want to do that. Like, I'm going to silence that seed that he put in me. And, I was thinking, what is the universal sign for wealth? Like, forever, like not even the yen or the dollar or the euro or whatever. Like, what is the universal sign of wealth?
In the natural.
In the natural.
Well, I would say gold.
Gold, right? Gold. Did you know that there was gold in the Garden of Eden? Like, I was half asleep, like listening to Genesis. I was like, wait, what? Okay, so they had all their needs taken care of. They didn't have to really work, but like God wanted them to have it all. God wanted them to be wealthy. He wanted them to have the gold.
He said that the gold was what? Do you remember? He said that the gold was good.
Yes, he did say that. And he said specifically that it's good. And so, we
got to get off this stronghold that just because we're Christian or we're representing God, that he doesn't want us to have an abundance.
But when you have an abundance, though, you're living, you're able to give. You're able to help. You're able to come to the rescue. You're able to help people that you care about. You're able to surprise them with things and, and come to their aid. It's a big deal. So
the Lord, I've been watching over this last year what he's been doing with you, and he's really been working with you. And it's just been beautiful to watch because he meets us where we are. He meets us with the things that we're passionate about, that we love. And for you, that's been business. Clearly, you have a passion for that.
Yes.
And he's put, after all these years, not that you're leaving your other business, but to multiply, to grow, entrepreneurship, kingdom wealth. So talk about your testimony about what he's done in the last year, what happened to your business, because we had 3 babies at one time. We built a house. The Lord called us to build a house and be the general contractors, and we homeschool. And that's some of what we'll get into now about raising, and having victory in your life. But talk about the story there.
So the best way to explain this journey is through a story.
Let me say really quickly, Sean Hurley said, amazing couple. We love you, Sean. You know that. You've always been a part of our journey here.
Love you, Sean.
Linda McLean said, right on, true word. Isn't it amazing that at creation, he gave the world all it would ever need. He doesn't have to ever add to it.
Yes, there was no lack. There was no lack. There was abundance and more than enough.
It blows my mind, everything that he placed here for us, that he created, that he has for us.
We just have to see it.
So share the story, because it's awesome.
So in 2012, I started my beauty business with nothing but grit and determination. I cold called, knocked on doors, and I hustled the old-fashioned way. It worked, but it was slow, it was painful, and it was exhausting, until I discovered something that changed everything. And this is what it is, the power of being found on the internet. I decided to teach myself SEO from scratch, comb through Google's manuals. And inside of 3 years, my business, my website dominated the top of every single search result in my field. My business did great, and leads came flooding in, and it thrived. But then life happened. In 2020, I gave birth to 3 people at once, triplets. And overnight, our lives turned into straight survival mode, okay? It was crazy. I was juggling nursing, pumping, while being half asleep and keeping my business afloat. Mother, wife, business owner, I did the bare minimum to keep my business alive, and serve my customers, my marketing efforts fell to the wayside, and I just tried to keep up as far as just serving my clients at the most basic level, and also just keeping the triplets alive. I mean, that was really all that I could try.
That was a full-time job in itself.
I mean, just thinking about it, I just start to kind of, like, not that it was traumatic, but I was in this state of, like, fury.
Well, let's talk about the timing of God, because
anyway,
3 years ago, this would not have really been, I mean, all things are possible through God, but the timing to do this was not right.
Okay, so fast forward to 2024, and the cracks began to show. My monthly leads, 30 to 70 a month, plummeted down to 2 to 5. I mean, I was watching as my business that I poured my heart and soul into literally slipped through my fingers. And I had been working in this business, you know, this was my baby before my babies came. And I mean, my blood, my sweat and tears, like everything went into this, all my hard work. And almost a decade, it just was slipped through my fingers. And then I made a critical mistake. While changing homes during our move, I updated my Google business address. A move I should have known better with all my SEO instinct to make. Google locked me out completely. No more leads, no more inquiries. It was like my business had completely disappeared from the map. I became invisible, and I hit rock bottom. It was at that point that I had to make a decision. Am I going to just go ahead and quit this business and let it die because it was a good time for it to just stop? Or am I going to stand up and am I going to fight? And I've always been a fighter. So I decided to stand up and fight to resurrect it. So with little time and money, I desperately started to reach out to experts and agencies for help, and prayed a lot. And then a miracle happened. The CEO and founder of a top SEO agency asked to speak to me personally. He was looking for a business that was struggling that would he could help out with SEO, and for his YouTube channel, because he had a YouTube channel that he was trying to grow, and he wanted to have a real-time example of like a struggling business. And my business happened to fit the bill perfect. And, you know, I knew that I was like being in contention with other people. And so I put on the court press. I'm like, we moved and I got locked out, and Google completely unverified me. I'm finished. And I had these triplets and, you know, all this stuff. And he felt compelled to help me. And so we did this work together, and without hesitation, I said yes. And God had thrown me a lifeline, and I knew it was God, and I was gripping it with everything that I had. No more going at it alone. No more dabbling this time. You know, this time I was all in, and I was taking massive action, building momentum, getting better every step of the way, seeing results happen before my eyes. Every win fueled my fire, and every challenge just sharpened me, and it just was so exciting. And it was like a phoenix, right? Rising from the ashes, like my dormant love for online marketing just came roaring back to life. And I was back in the game, and I was having so much fun, and I was having the time of my life. And the fast track wasn't just a concept, it actually became my reality. And together, we fixed my Google business profile, we fixed my website, we fixed my entire online reputation, and I worked side by side in real time with an expert, applying every street strategy and in real time, and expert strategy in real time. And my business became quite unstoppable. Slowly but surely, my business began to rise again. And when it did, inside of a year, it soared. I wasn't just back to where I was before, I was dominating in ways that I never even imagined. The leads just flooded in, and even now, the business is just booming, and my business just became unstoppable. So last year in October in Seattle, I stood on a stage at a digital marketing conference. as his special guest. And I was asked to speak on stage and to share my story of transformation and the triumph. And on that stage, I felt like God spoke to me, and he said, and it occurred to me, I'm like, why don't I do this? Why don't I do this? I know what it takes. I know what it feels like to struggle, to watch your leads crumble, to feel completely overwhelmed in your business that you can't work on your business, to feel like you just can't manage, that your voice is just not heard in this crowded marketplace. I knew what it felt like to have your leads dry up and to feel like you're just dying in your business. But I also knew the way out. And that is why I decided to start this agency and why I decided to name it Profit Overflow, to help other businesses like you guys get more and get your clients, find clients on autopilot, to have fun again, to make it so that this is something that you love again and that's fun and that you enjoy and that you feel invigorated by, and give you that edge over your competitors. And I know what it feels like to have this feeling that you can't do it. But you know what? I also know what it feels like to win. And I want to give that same transformation to other businesses. And that is why I decided to start this. And it's been quite fruitful.
So what does it feel like to have victory?
It's pretty fun. It's really fun. I mean, just, like when you were little and you won that really big sports game and it just feels so good. It's satisfying and it's fun and you kind of are addicted to it and you want to just keep winning.
Well, I feel like we live in this society now where it's like winning doesn't matter. Let's give everyone a trophy.
Let's talk about
we have
that.
Coaches that talk about, well, I don't really care about winning. And it's not all about winning. But
right.
Through sports, through winning, losing, it could teach you so much about
right.
life.
Yeah.
Overcoming adversity,
yeah.
overcoming loss. There's so many people like children.
Yeah.
They don't have great home lives.
Mm-hmm.
They get bullied at school. They have no idea what it means to have victory in their life. They think that they're losers. Their parents or other people in their life might even tell them that they're losers. So for me, as a coach, when I'm coaching, it's interesting because a couple months back, I remember I heard somebody talking and they saying that in the natural, many times something that you like to enjoy in the natural, it ends up like correlating to your gifting. Like, for example, they were talking about people that are healing ministers. Mm-hmm. Many of them at some point in time were called into the medical profession. And so I started thinking, I was like, my goodness, well, I'm a healing minister and I've never had any desire to do that.
Right.
And this guy was talking about
sports.
Well, that's what I'm going to get into. This guy was talking about how he is always into guns in the natural and weapons because he's like a weapon, like a intercessor, like a weapon in the spirit.
Oh,
and I started asking the
like
Lord,
a force to be
what
reckoned
have you
with?
always like in the natural been like teaching me? What was something that I was into? And it was sports.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just because I like playing sports or the sport itself. It was because I feel like he had always been teaching me this, putting this desire in my heart, what it's like for people to have victory. Because Jesus Christ, when he went on that cross, was the ultimate victory. 100%. So to teach and coach people what that feels like, and that's.
If you think back, I believe that God put a seed in everybody to have some kind of business, and it's like, think to yourself, if this is something that you desire, think to yourself, what in my experience has just been easy for me? Like, what have people asked me for advice on because it's so easy for me? And like, for me, it's been business. And, it didn't even occur to me that the reason I was successful with my beauty business is because I was good at lead generation. And I didn't even know that was anything special or even a skill. It just came so naturally to me. I always like to call it like an unconscious competence. There is something inside you that God has blessed you with that's easy for you, that just comes naturally, that you enjoy. And that's where you can have victory in the natural, is by co-laboring with him and seeing that and running with that thing that he gave you.
And I want these kids and people that we're teaching to know that you might not win every game, but you're still a winner.
Right.
You still have victory.
Right.
But, sometimes when you
but
go
losing's
out there
good.
and you actually win and
Yeah.
they see that, then they start to, because it's not easy to go out there as a coach in the community and just start preaching the gospel.
Right.
You kind of have to share the gospel without sharing the gospel.
Right.
In a sense. But when they start to get the taste of what winning feels like, then they start to believe that they're winners.
Well, and about that, also losing, like, I kind of also love losing. Like, there's so much to learn in
you're the
losing.
only one at this table that likes that.
Well, because, okay, look at the market.
But you learn a lot
But
from
this
losing.
is what I like about entrepreneurship. The market does not give you any, like, it doesn't give me any special treatment because I'm a woman. It doesn't give me any special treatment because I'm a mom. If I have a product or a service that just doesn't cut it, it doesn't cut it, right? But the cool thing about the market is that, it'll chew you out and spit you out, right? But then you're like, okay, how can I reposition? Let's try this again. And so you try again. And then, okay, you lose again. And you're like, okay, so what if I did it this way? And then you start getting traction. And then you're like, oh, maybe I have something. So I'll dive into that. And so then you start learning and positioning and growing. And then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, now I'm winning. Like, this is it. This is fun. And losing is also just as important as winning, maybe even more, because you learn quickly with losing.
Well, why
sure.
don't you talk a little bit about what it looks like to have victory in your home, in your marriage? Because, we spent, 12 years of our relationship before we were in the kingdom of God? Yeah. And it can take time. Yeah. For these things to manifest. And
I don't want people to think that we're in this constant state of victory. It's not like every day in our house, ooh, we're so victorious. I believe that you have to believe that Jesus died on the cross for you and that you have victory, okay? But at the same time, you can't also get cocky about it.
Well, not every moment. We're going to go through trials and tribulations in life.
Oh, 100%.
And I think that everyone
we have our own. We had a fight last night.
Well, it wasn't really that.
Well, it wasn't really a fight. It was more an attack. I almost didn't come on the show. Last night I was convinced that the enemy had me convinced that I wasn't supposed to be here. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to share. I'm not supposed to be. I have no business being there. Nobody cares about what I'm doing. All this kind of stuff. Like, why am I even going? And, I have ADHD and I have a lot of energy when it comes to talking about things that I'm passionate about, like business. But just in general, like having the stage or being in the spotlight, it's not really my thing.
But I'm
definitely more of an introvert.
The enemy will come in, but he's a withered off old branch. He will try to make you believe lies, but this is where you have victory and you overcome these things, and you made it.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite verses is in Ecclesiastes. It says, a dream cometh through a multitude of business. A multitude of business. A dream cometh through a multitude of business. It's one of my favorites.
Why don't you provide some encouragement for young moms that would have entrepreneurial heart but don't really know how they can do that along with raising children?
I love that. So that happened to me. God put this new business on my heart, and I really felt a pull to help people with this business. But I wasn't going to do it at the expense of my kids not knowing me. Right? So I'm ambitious, but not to the point that I would want to not be with my kids. So I asked God, I was like, God, how am I going to do this? Like, I know what it takes to build a business, and I know like the effort that you have to put in to make it successful. So how am I going to do that and be a mom and then still run my current business? So I asked him, and this is what you need to ask yourself. The question you need to ask yourself is, how can I? Not I can't. How can I? How can I find a way to make money without having it take less time? How can I leverage something that I have and maybe have somebody help me and leverage it somehow? It's how can I? So the way that I did that was God put an assistant in my lap who's been helping me a lot with my current business. And it's enabled me to be free to do this business, which I really like. So I would say, don't let time stop you. Don't let resources stop you. Don't let anything, even with money, like, who can you partner with? who might be able to give you what you need? What avenues can you leverage? Maybe a distribution channel, okay, that maybe you can cut them in as part of your percentage or something. How can you, like, start thinking creatively? Who can I talk to that would know about this? How can I figure out a way to do this when I don't know how? Like, you have to start thinking creatively. You have to get out of your box. You have to be a creator. You have to be creative. If you want to make this happen, it's going to have to come from your mind and from prayer and from asking the Lord to co-labor with you is the only way. Because in the natural, it's not possible. In the natural, it's like, oh, well, I've got the kids, so I can't work.
Well, we also homeschool.
Yeah.
We coach. We have teams. I mean, we have a marriage.
And there's laundry in the house and the dog.
Out there because a lot of times people like to make excuses.
Yes.
We at one time we're building a house. Thankfully, we got in the house, but triplets.
Yeah.
4 years old. We homeschool our son. We coach. We run multiple businesses. We have a show. We lead mission trips.
You're like starting to kind of overwhelm me just thinking.
Itinerant preacher, sharing the gospel. I mean, we have, on the surface, we could have all kinds of excuses of why not.
Oh, for sure. But you can't.
I mean, our kids are in the studio right now.
Yeah.
Like, our children are literally in the studio right now.
Yeah, because we asked ourselves, how can we?
Yes.
Not, oh, I can't. Oh, I can't because, I have the kids. Oh, I can't because of this. Like, how can I? And how can I in the natural is bribes. That's how you do it. Bribes and a tablet.
Well, I would just encourage people, like what you're saying. If God has planted a seed on your heart of something, if there's been a prophetic word spoken over your life. I mean, we had so many prophetic words about business, and the timing does matter. But you also, like you said, you have to align with God. You have to align with the promises, align with these prophetic words, these things on your heart, and just get out there and go.
And I have a word about that, too. If God has given you a word and you have a prophetic word to do something, I would say, go. Take action. Do not wait. And here's why. Because if you throw time at fear, it grows. Okay? The only way to kill fear and anxiety is to just do the thing. Just do the thing. And don't even think about it. Don't even stress about it. Like, just jump in. Just jump in and do it. Don't ever, ever, ever throw time at your fear. If God says to do something, do it now. Don't you think?
Well,
if he tells you to do it.
Taking action. I mean, delayed obedience is disobedience. So if he's telling you to do it now, do it now.
Oh, I like that. Delayed obedience is disobedience. I like that. I like that a lot.
So we have about 5 minutes left. We thank you guys for watching today. Just please share it. That's how people are watching it around the world. Like the show. Bless you guys. What else is on your heart, Annika? We have like 5 minutes. Anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Well, gosh, I have a whole list here of things. But one of my favorite leadership, I read a lot. And one of my favorite people is a guy named Jim Rohn. And if you know who that is, I want you to write his name in the comments. Because if you know who he is, you know how to spell his name. But one of the things that he says, Nate, and I heard him say in one of the books that I read, was that about Jesus. And he said Jesus was the greatest presenter of all time. Because his presentation was 2 words long. Follow me. Follow me. That's what he said. And the reason his presentation was so short was not because of what he said, but because of who he was. Who he was spoke so loudly that he only had to use 2 words. How awesome is that? And it's like, in business and your life, maybe we all need to take a playbook from Jesus and be like, why don't I make who I am be so loud that I don't even have to tell people who I am? They just know.
Well, amen. That's good. Thank God. I said, thank God Jesus didn't settle for anything less than victory, because we would have been in trouble.
Yeah. And then, the authority thing. Remember the authority thing that we were talking about on the way home from church? So on the way home from church in the car, I had this vision of the FBI. Like, like the FBI, they come to your house, they're like, FBI, you know, and you're like, oh, right? The FBI comes to your house, and what do they do when they come to your house? What do? You like ask, can I see your badge, right? You want to ask for their identity, right? And the reason they have this authority is because of their identity in the natural. And so in the supernatural, the reason that we have authority and dominion over the darkness is because of our identity. It's who we are, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So authority flows out of identity, is what I wanted to say. I
Keep
thought
going.
about that.
What else do you have over there?
Well, another thing about business. So I was talking to somebody at the gym, and she was telling, I seem to just like attract people like who want to talk about business. It's so awesome. Like I just it just happens around me all the time. It's like I have this magnet, right? And this woman just started telling me about this business that she's starting. And she was, I don't even know the name of her invention, but she was, let's call it widgets, okay? So she was going on and on about the widget, and I was just doing all this research and making it so great. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool, man, yeah. And so I look at her, and I was like, I don't mean this offensively. I promise I mean this in the most loving and sweet and kind and helpful way possible, but like, have you, do you know if people are actually willing to pay for your widget? And she just looked at me like a deer in headlights. Like, why would I figure, why would I be interested in that? And it just dawned on me, it's like, the Lord has given me this common sense about this stuff. And it's common for me, but it's just not so common for other people. And it made me wonder, I wonder what else is inside people that they don't think is common, that is not so common. Like, it's common to you, but it's not so common to other people. Like, right? Like, how can you leverage the gifts that he gave you for business? How can you do that? And so to me, that was just so glaringly obvious. Why would you spend like all this time making a widget? Like, I'm glad that you did that. That's super fun. I'm happy for you if you want to spend your time doing that. But like, if no one will buy it, you don't have a business. There's no demand. Like, why is like people just don't like think about this, but it's so funny.
I mean, sometimes you just have to know what your why is too, because some people don't care
and
if anybody buys it. They just have the idea to make something, and
you're right.
A couple people want it, they're good
and
with that.
And this is why business is a God idea, because you have to be selfless. To be in business and to be successful, I'm talking about running a good, solid business where you're serving people. You have to solve a problem. You have to come to people's rescue. You have to serve them. And if you're not serving them in a way that they value, i.e. in the natural they're willing to pay for, you don't have a business, right? So you have to die to self and put their needs first, not what you want. Oh, I want to sell tacos on the side of the road. Yeah, but do people want to buy them? Like, is that what they want?
I want to encourage anybody that watches this today too, that you don't have to look like anybody else.
Yes.
The way that
that
God created you is unique.
Yes.
You have a unique call on your life. Mm-hmm. And if God calls you to do something, he'll help you find a way, even if it seems impossible. Because I look at our life, and I don't know many people that live a life like we do. We truly divide and conquer. We're able to, the Lord made it clear that we were not to put our kids in the school system, and there's a sacrifice to that.
Yeah.
But we figure it out. We have 3 kids. We don't have to put them in daycare. We figure it out. And, you have your businesses. I have business. I mean, we have the ministry, and we figure it out. And so I think we already talked about this a little bit on the show, but it doesn't have to look like anyone else, and that can still be very beautiful. It can absolutely be God. And
it is God, because what you're saying is God, because you know what? Stop comparing yourself, okay?
Yes.
Because comparison's the thief of joy. But other than that, God put a unique seed in you. in you. And you trying to compare yourself is disrespecting God, because you're basically trying to say that the seed that he put in somebody else is like better somehow than yours. But like the seed that God put in you was intentional. He knew us in our mother's womb. He knew us and he made us that way with a certain seed, with a certain way to express itself. And it's just not right for us to try to think that we should try to be somebody else. It's just wrong. It's like, why would you want to go on someone else's mission? Go on your own mission. I want to
say this. Anybody who watches the show today and says, I want to be Nate and Ann or like Nate and Ann, you ain't going to be like Nate and Ann.
Yeah, it's just going to be a second-rate copy. You're just going to be a second-rate copy. Why not be the original of yourself?
Yes.
Why, you're just going to be a copy. You're never, ever going to measure up.
If anything, just be empowered and say, wow, God made me beautiful and unique, and I'm going to run with it.
Yeah, and the way that he made me was very, very different than anybody else. And you know what? I'm going to celebrate him for that. And I'm not going to get mad at him for that. I'm going to celebrate what he gave me and the seed that he gave me. And I'm going to nurture and I'm going to be fruitful. And I'm going to multiply the seed that he put inside me.
Any last thoughts? We're about to end the show for the week. So are there any last thoughts on your heart that you wanted to share?
I think also that God gives you it's like some people can be like, oh, well, that person's really successful, whatever. But you know what? God also gave that person the seeds and the awareness to see the ability too. So it's also like, whenever you think that somebody just got lucky, they also saw opportunities that God gave them.
Right. Anything for the show? Anything for the city?
I just think that right now we are going through the most exciting time to be alive. Nate always hears me talk about this, how great it is to be alive right now. We have access to things that we have not had access to in the past. I mean, if you want to learn how to do something, you just hop on YouTube and learn. The digital age is amazing, and what better way to be fruitful and multiply than today?
Amen. Well, thank you, honey, for coming on the show. Thank you for all the knowledge.
Is Kai going to say hi?
Well, I don't know. We're going to find out. You just act like nobody's watching. You're just having a conversation with me and your mom. This boy's had so many shout-outs on the show because he is a young man, wise beyond his years, beautiful relationship with the Lord, and sincere and pure heart. And, so anything on your heart, Kai? Anything the Lord has on your heart right now at this moment?
No.
No? We'll say hi to the audience.
Hi.
Well, I'm so proud of you for being so brave and sitting on your daddy's lap and coming on here, because that is something that most 9-year-olds would not have the ability to do. So.
Overcoming fears.
Absolutely.
And that's a lot of success, is overcoming fears
100%.
And being able to fail.
Yes.
And know that just because most successful people in the world have failed many times along the way.
Oh, look at Edison with the light bulb. Didn't he say, and I quote, you guys can chime in on the comments and correct me, please. But didn't he say, why didn't you quit after 10,000 tries? He's like, I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work.
So our children were angels today.
They were
angels. We must
angels.
be doing something right. Good job, honey. Because we have 3 4-year-olds in the audience, and they did not make a peep.
And are they going to come up? They're not going to come up. They have no. They are.
Karis,
do you guys want to come here and say hi on the camera? No. Okay.
They all said.
Okay. Yeah, they all said. It's intimidating here with all the setup and the lighting. Even I'm intimidated. I'm a grown up. I'm supposed to be a grown up. Oh, Karis is going to come.
We have one coming.
Can I take your headphones off? You going to say hi? No. This is Karis.
Can I talk?
Yeah, you can talk. Here, talk on the microphone.
Say something to everybody.
Say something to everybody.
I love Mama.
I love Mama.
Oh.
All right, so bless you guys.
Are you going to come say something too?
We have one more saying hi.
Come here, come say something.
Mama.
Yes.
Can I do what Karis is doing on her tablet?
Yes, you
Love you guys. I speak life, love, and healing over your minds, your bodies. As you can see, we're stepping back into our normal life, which is a blessing. And y'all have a great week. God bless. Say bye, Annika.
Bye.
I just went into my tab.
May your business be fruitful and multiply.
In Jesus' name.